Well, it's now February. We can officially say that WrestleMania is in 2 months. And we got some build already to WrestleMania. We now know Roman Reigns has selected CM Punk and will challenge him for the World Heavyweight Championship in Vegas. And it was April 17th or 18th, something around that. And it's the first time I can remember, if ever, that Roman Reigns has chased the World Championship since it returned. Was it May of 22 when Seth Rollins first won it? And they pretended that they recreated it out of thin air and forgot that they had a world title that looked almost exactly like it several years back. But nonetheless, Roman Reigns is challenging CM Punk, and they had a heck of a face-off on Monday Night Raw that I think was good for both parties. If you're asking me who, quote-unquote, won the debate, in other words, who came off more confident, who came off smoother, had better insults, just a generally better rhythmatic promo. Is that a word? I would say CM Punk, because it's very hard to defeat CM Punk in the way that CM Punk delivers his promos. Roman Reigns, for all the progress he's made on the microphone, because it was one of his biggest, if not his biggest criticism when he was the big dog, he was just horrific on the mic. I still think that he was exposed a bit against CM Punk. He wasn't embarrassed. It wasn't John Cena war of words as they were going to face each other several years ago, and John Cena just tore apart Roman Reigns and made him look like a total rookie. Roman Reigns stood his ground, but he is not in the league of CM Punk. That's just all there is to it. Again, I don't think it hurt Roman. I still think that it's interesting that both are baby faces heading into WrestleMania. Does WWE turn one of them heel? Does WWE say, you know what? I don't know. Let's let the fans decide. Maybe they let us figure it out. Maybe we cheer for both. Maybe it's dueling chants. Maybe there is no higher purpose to this match other than to have Roman win or Punk retain. And I do believe it is to have Roman win, but again, we got a lot of time between now and WrestleMania. I mean, we've got, 11 and a half weeks until WrestleMania? It's a lot of TV time. And Roman Reigns isn't going to be there every single Monday night. He's officially a part-timer, although his part-time schedule happened years ago. But now that he's returned, he's won the Rumble. He's challenged CM Punk. He'll probably be there at least half of the time to confront CM Punk. Maybe there'll be an eventual breakdown for physicality. But I want that to hold off as long as possible. To me, that devalues the program itself, because before you get to the physicality, you always need to answer basics that can be done via promos or via sit-down interviews, solo and then together. That doesn't have to be in the ring. If Roman's better in the back, in the locker room, in a kind of sit-down style with Cole, being the moderator for the conversation, that works too. You could also do video packages. But before somebody ends up just punching somebody in the face, and then we get the inevitable brawl and pull aparts and brawls and pull aparts that Triple H has used really to a exhausting degree, we need to establish who these men are again. Again, I know the star power's there, but we need to understand why they hate each other, what their personal issues in, dive into their past even a little more. I would go deeper than they did on Raw, because that was just the start. But the talking is and should almost always be the first step. And then, yes, in about a month or so, if this thing breaks down, they start punching each other and there's a spear, or Roman Reigns and CM Punk maybe are forced to team together. And, kind of what The Rock and John Cena did against Miz and R-Truth before they had their WrestleMania match at WrestleMania 27 or 28, whatever it was. Then they could do that, where Roman and Punk are forced to team together to take on, I don't know, the MFTs or something. They could do that, and then the tension builds builds there, and they continue on, and the breakdown happens. Again, there's no need to rush any physicality. Those that want to see these two brawl need to have a little patience and understand that the story is very important here, and there's a lot of story to be told. And you know what? If I were Roman, and if I got approval from the quote-unquote office, I'd like to bring up the podcast that CM Punk did after he left WWE. And as Roman Reigns foolishly said, he went on a 10-year vacation, which of course is not true. He busted his ass doing MMA and did eventually return to wrestling for AEW. That was generally, I would say it was a mixed bag of a return. I mean, a hell of a start, fun with MJF, and then it kind of broke down with the post interview where he essentially insulted the company in front of Tony Khan. Just ridiculous. But he didn't really take a vacation. He was doing things. But honestly, he deserved it. He could have gone into retirement and made a hell of a living and still done what he had done. And he earned that. But he decided to come back. He didn't have to, but he wanted to. He wanted to do things the right way this time. Come into the company, do whatever, toe the company line this time. And that's what he's doing. He's actually the guy that the Rebel CM Punk from 2011 would actually hate, which is the irony here. But Roman Reigns should bring up that podcast that he did with Colt Cabana, which is the first podcast Punk did after he left WWE, controversially. He really should, because what was said in that podcast with Colt Cabana, one of the most listened to wrestling podcasts I think of all time, is when he was talking about how CM Punk was talking about how the office was telling him to make Roman look strong, right? And he could bring something like that up. I mean, they're certainly not shameful or shy about making sure that WWE fans know what we're watching isn't real. They know damn well that we know that they know, and they want to make sure that we know times 10. So they could certainly bring up that podcast. And look, Roman was already calling CM Punk Phil in that promo. So things got real quick. But more about that promo a little bit later. And if I remember, I hope I do, there's a little bit of extra stuff that CM Punk has done on the side, non-wrestling related, that he and his wife April have done, AJ Lee, on the side that really just, there's really not much about CM Punk outside of wrestling that I like, I have to say. It's just his entire worldview is opposed to mine in every single way. But that said, we'll get into that at the end of the show. And it is a little bit non-wrestling related, but since CM Punk is the subject at hand, it does fall enough into the wrestling category for me to talk about it. So we'll talk about that at the end. And I will say, if you don't want to hear anything but purely me talking about wrestling only, then, I'll give you a little bit of a heads up before we discuss it. But that's at the end. We also might get into some emails. Yes, I know it's not Friday, it's Tuesday, but it is a Rumble post week, fully into WrestleMania season now, and some of you have emailed me, so if there's time, we will get to some of your emails regarding your reaction to the Royal Rumble. But before we get there, I want to welcome you to the show. This is, yes, the unofficial WWE podcast. We have been doing this, good God, since 2014, I think I actually started this whole crazy thing, 12 years. And we're going strong, and we're not done yet. So thank you, everybody. If you want to support the show, you can do that at Patreon, at patreon.com/WWE podcast. And check us out. There's trials for every tier that we have. Video updates. There's going to be weekly video updates for those who are in the mid to upper tiers. And obviously ad-free everything we do, and hundreds of shows in the library that you can check out at patreon.com/WWE podcast or Apple. Give us a 5-star rating, or on Spotify or Spreaker. Those are also good places to support us. So let's dive into Monday Night Raw. This is credit to, and I do appreciate these guys, free advertising for Pro Wrestling Net, because they do an excellent job every week covering the breakdown. I mean, I just don't know how they come up with all this. This must be a pain in the ass to write down everything that happened on Monday Night Raw. Almost everything. I mean, it's pretty incredible. They do a lot of work over there. So credit to them. And they don't even know I'm giving them credit, but I have to, and I think out of respect. So And honestly, I think Jason Powell is one of the more intelligent and well-spoken and tenured wrestling analysts in the space. So credit to him, and maybe I'll have him on the show one time, but we'll see. All right, so this was from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania at the Xfinity Mobile Arena. Hallelujah, they are back in the lower 48. They're done for now with their overseas tour, thank God. And I don't mean any disrespect to the fans over there, but I mean, we got spoiled over here for years and decades of having our times etched in stone. You knew when Raw's starting, you know when SmackDown's starting. Yeah, you know what kind of crowd you're going to get. And I know for a lot of you overseas, it's just, you're probably going, oh man, back to this. But for me, it's like, yeah, we're back. But it was episode, if you're keeping track at home, episode 1706 of Monday Night Raw from, again, Philly. So we had Breaker come out because he's going to lose his mind. And he started to accuse Adam Pearce of ruining his Royal Rumble. He said that if Pearce ruined the Rumble, then he'd ruin his show. That's when the rest of the Vision came out, tried to calm down Breaker. Heyman took the mic and blamed Pearce. Breaker took the mic from Heyman and stared him down for a minute, and Breaker called out Adam Pearce, who came out, and a bunch of security immediately came out as well. And Pearce brought up the masked man who attacked Breaker and said the last time they had a mystery attacker, it turned out to be Austin Theory. And he said Breaker was one of the first wrestlers to take part in the random draw. He told Breaker he would make it up to him by letting him keep his job, quote, despite his piss-poor performance in the Rumble. And Breaker left the ring to go to the stage, and Reed and Heyman exited the ring to stop him. So, a couple things happening here. One, I don't know if it was meant to be serious or not, but if it is, I mean, I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think he was being serious that he was actually going to fire somebody for, quote, a piss poor Rumble performance? I mean, since when are performances, and whether you win or lose, on the table as factors in you being fired or keeping your job? I mean, I just have to imagine that was just a jab at Bron Breakker and not a serious threat. So I'll go with that, because otherwise that opens up a can of worms. So the second piece of this is, though, many people are speculating that masked man is not Seth Rollins, that it could indeed be Adam Pearce. Now, I don't think that's the case. It would be funny if it was Adam Pearce, but what's the payoff there? What's the upshot? What's the upshot? You're going to have Adam Pearce have a match with Bron Breakker in a massive spot at the Rumble, having Adam Pearce be the culprit? I mean, if that's the case too, then that would be a cause for Adam Pearce to be fired as GM. But what's more likely is this. Adam Pearce let in, maybe there'll be footage leaked, that Adam Pearce allowed this masked man to enter the building, and that man is revealed to be Seth Rollins. I do believe that masked man will be revealed as Seth Rollins. As I said in my Rumble review, though, I don't believe that masked man at the Rumble was Seth Rollins. So while Rollins continues to mend himself and he's getting closer and closer to coming back, maybe in 4 to 5 weeks is my guess as to when he's able to be cleared, they're going to have somebody be a fill-in that can act like Seth Rollins, but is not actually Seth Rollins. He's kind of a body double for Seth until Seth can actually be revealed. And I think that's the case, because it has to be Seth versus Bron Breakker. At even Elimination Chamber is possible, but my guess is that Seth Rollins is revealed at the Elimination Chamber as the masked man, screwing Bron Breakker in the chamber. Now, no participants, I don't believe, have been announced for the chamber. I'm guessing there'll be qualifying matches in the weeks to come, which will be fun. But I think at the chamber, you're going to have Bron Breakker get screwed by the masked man again, who's going to reveal himself, and it'll be Seth, leading to a WrestleMania match. That's my best guess. But I do want to see Adam Pearce and Bron Breakker go at it. I know that Bron Breakker is just going to spear him into the 6th level of hell, which will be funny to watch. But the tension between Pearce and Breakker, there has to be a payoff there, please. So Pierce said, Breaker gets stopped by the Vision. LA Knight's music plays. He comes out of the ring, and I think it was from behind. He attacks Logan Paul in theory with a chair. Reed comes back. Knight then makes his exit and yells at Reed, and then Breaker was shown looking upset, and that was that. So Corey Graves and Cole then stood at ringside and set up a Royal Rumble recap. And yeah, I mean, by the way, ESPN has given the rating for the Royal Rumble, and it's a D. So not too far off from what I gave it. I gave it a C-, and I might have been being generous, just because I think the wrestling itself was decent. But ESPN rated it a D. And from what we're hearing through reports all over the internet, it doesn't seem like ESPN is particularly thrilled with WWE. I'm guessing their numbers aren't what they thought they would be for the ESPN Unlimited. I don't know if those numbers are out, but I'm guessing that they're not too thrilled, and rightfully so. I mean, I think that the WWE Network was the best format, obviously best for the consumer, but for WWE to maximize the amount of money, of course, they went to the largest sports provider in the world and went to ESPN off Peacock. So now you got to have multiple subscriptions, but that's what you get. This is called stretching the consumer as far as you can go, figuring out where that line is, and then maybe pulling back a little bit. So, I refuse to buy the $30 subscription. I refuse. All right. Javon Evans versus El Grande Americano. The match went 12 minutes with Javon Evans beating El Grande. Late in the match, Evans went up top and hit a coast-to-coast move. Cole called it a swanton and said it barely connected, which it did. And then Rayo distracted the ref while Bravo took a cheap shot at Evans. And then Rayo slipped the metal piece to Americano, but the ref spotted it. Chad Gable, the OG Americano, comes out, and it distracted Ludwig Kaiser Americano, and Evans took advantage of the distraction and eventually hit the OG cutter for the victory. 12 and a half minutes, Javon Evans wins. That's great, because now you have Chad Gable back in a role that I thought was pretty much used up. We'll see how much more they can squeeze out of this. With the Ludwig Kaiser, hey, at least gives him work, and we all know what kind of athlete Javon Evans is, for my God. By the way, there has been some discussion lately about Javon Evans potentially breaking Randy Orton's record for winning the world title. Not going to happen. I don't see Javon Evans winning the world title for a couple of years, but I could be wrong. Maybe he catches fire. Randy Orton's record, though, may last for quite some time. It's a special moment. Okay. We have, by the way, the analysis here, according to Pro Wrestling Net, says that Cole made a bad call when he labeled the coast-to-coast a swanton. He really wasn't. Americano was holding onto the ropes and wasn't in position to take the move. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so we have AJ Styles music play, but Gunther walks out and mimics Styles, which the crowd hated, which I mean, Gunther is just one of the best characters on Raw. One of the best characters in the company. He mocks his opponents after he beats them, but he's beating them, and he's beating them clean. That's what I like. And he officially retired AJ Styles. We all know about Goldberg. We all know about John Cena. AJ Styles is the one that he's truly the first one that he's actually retired, because the other two were going to retire whether they lost or won the match. But fine, I'll play along. And Dragon Lee comes out and starts attacking Gunther, gets a couple good shots in, and that's when Gunther ends up hitting him with a ring bell, and then he put Lee in a sleeper until the referees and producers came out, and he ended up putting Lee onto the apron, applied the sleeper again, and his body went limp, that was a hell of a visual. It was only a few seconds where Gunther had Dragon Lee in a sleeper holding him over the rope, and his body went limp. It looked like he was being hung or hanged, whatever the best way to say it is. it was a hell of a visual. I mean, I'm surprised there's not like people up in arms about it, because it looked like he was being, hung with a rope, So I think hanged is the right way to say it, but hanged sounds stupid. So I'm going to say hung. All right. Good stuff for Gunther. He continues his heat. I like it. It could be the year, though. It could be the year we see Brock Lesnar and Gunther. I understand Obafemi and Brock had the moment in the Rumble, and Obafemi was labeled as a free agent, quote unquote. Excuse me. But Gunther doesn't have a title. Brock doesn't have a title. Brock may be retiring after this year. Let's just let them go. I don't even care who's babyface or heel. I understand they're both, I guess, labeled as heels, especially with Brock being a heel, but he gets cheered because of this. He's just such a big star. Then you have Gunther, who, of course, is the hottest heel, I think, in the company. This is the time to do it. Even more than Obafemi, I want to see Brock and Gunther. I understand the size with Obafemi is a little more comparable from a just pure muscle mass perspective. The visual's more impressive. But with Gunther, the character is infinitely more established than Obafemi, especially on the main roster. Gunther's a much bigger star in the public eye than Obafemi is at the moment. You got to go Gunther Brock. Right? All right. So we then have backstage Pierce say that if Heyman knows what's good for Breakker, he'll escort him out of the building. And Pierce told Heyman to tell Bronson to go get ready for his match against Penta. And Heyman asked Pierce if he knew who he was talking to and in what city. Pierce laughed, removed his glasses, and said, FAFO or FAFO. Am I right? Everybody's up to that. That's like the new thing right now. FAFO. F around and find out, right? That's kind of like, it's a trend or whatever. It's like one of the hot cultural cliches, like YOLO forever, right? Kind of that right now. So the War Raiders were in the ring coming out of a break, and Obafemi comes out, and Oba was in the ring, and he just essentially destroyed them single-handedly. We had Obafemi destroy Eric and Ivar, who were once a very feared tag team, if you remember. And that was that. So that kind of, and here's some funny analysis. It says, so when do Eric and Ivar's deals expire? Oba destroyed them to point that they didn't get a single offensive move. Yeah, that's true. That is insane, really. That I understand Obafemi's a force and they're trying to make him a big deal, and he will, I think, be a big deal. But Eric and Ivar get no offense at all? Really? That does kind of lead you to believe that the War Raiders are maybe on their way out. Okay. A Finn Balor video package aired. He said the business is built on respect. And he's always given it throughout his career. He said he's realized that it's not returned. He recalled Adam Pearce telling him the Royal Rumble was full. He said he wants the world championship and he doesn't think he's a bad guy, but he told CM Punk he's willing to do bad things at this point. Cole then plugged the WWE Podcast Network. Oh, thanks, Cole. Thanks for the free promotion. Nikki and Brie were shown meeting up when hugging backstage. Okay. Before that, though, the Finn promo I think was good. The video package was good. It's just impossible that the Rumble was quote unquote full and Balor couldn't get in. I think that's hogwash. But Finn Balor will most certainly be in the Elimination Chamber. I'm guessing already it's Braun Breaker, CM Punk, Finn Balor, probably Logan Paul because they just put him in there for showmanship and just the crazy crap he does in there. Maybe even Brock Lesnar in there. Throw a little Brock in there for fun. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a star-studded Elimination Chamber already. So we have then Nikki Bella come out to a mild reaction, and Brie's entrance theme played, and she received more cheers. And once in the ring, Nikki said it was a full circle moment. She said it was hard to believe she hadn't set foot in the Raw ring in over 7 years. And Nikki said everyone is happy that, quote, Brie mode was back. Okay, well, yeah, Nikki received a mild reaction because no one's asking for the Bellas, like nobody. And then Nikki also turned heel not too long ago, and now she's back to being a babyface by default because her sister returned, I guess. Is that how this all works? And so, you know, Brie Bella obviously is the new return, the newly fresh return to the women's division. They're going to be a tag team chasing the women's tag titles, and that's fine. You know, but to me, that's like the only positive here is that it just elevates the tag titles for the women that, you know, have done much better over the last 6 months than have done since they've been created. But we have Brie thanking the fans. She said she's happy to be back and home. She didn't come back just because Nikki was getting her butt kicked every week. And she said she was just kidding and loved Nikki. Just horrible banter. She said that they're the original tag team and they want in. She said it's time for them to go for the women's tag team titles. And that was it. So, by the way, Nikki thought that the crowd was booing her, but they were cheering for cheering for Coop, right? So it's an NFL player. Forgive me, I don't really watch the NFL. But they were cheering actually for some football player, and then Nikki crapped on the crowd, and Brie had to tell him, no, hey, they're not booing, right? They're saying somebody's name. And Nikki had to go, oh, whoops, this is awkward. And it was just a bad segment. Or that part of the segment was horrible. And you guys know how I feel about the Bellas. They are high on their own supply. I don't know who these imaginary fans are that have been willing the Bellas to come back. Now, in interviews since they left, or the first go around, one of the stock questions people ask is, "Oh, you thinking about? You ever miss it? You ever want to go back?" Yeah, like that's just what you ask in interviews. But I don't really feel there was an organic push for the Bellas to come back to WWE. Who are these imaginary fans that wanted this? I mean, I don't think fans are, other than people like me, are generally hate it. They're just kind of go, oh, it's the Bellas. Cool. Right? I don't think people love it or hate it generally. I think that you have a lot of people going, oh, cool, the Bellas. That's I remember they had a nice little fun ride during the Divas era. I think people are mildly interested in that, but it's going to fade quick. The tag team division and the women's division would have done just fine without them. They did just fine without them, and in spite of them, they did. I don't know who these fans are that were pushing for the Bellas to come back. I've heard this before from the Bellas too. Oh, people always ask, who are these people? Granted, Brie got a massive reaction at the Rumble, but that's what you get when you haven't been in the company for a while and people are already amped, ready for returns, and you are the only return that WWE really got. No Jericho, which was the biggest disappointment. So, all right. Well, yeah, you guys know how I feel about the Bellas. Just horrible. They're 40-year-old women, 40-something-year-old women, still doing stripper pole dances with backward hats. They're like the old moms now who are trying to be like their teenage daughters and dress like they do. That's how they feel. They haven't evolved at all. And look, I'm not hoping that they get injured or anything like that. I'm not that cynical. But I just have no use for the Bellas in 2026 in the women's division. Yeah, that's me. Okay, so Brie mode, yay. All right. We have Bert Kreischer joining Otis. I don't really care. Maxine Dupree shows up, and Bert said what Natty did to her was bullcrap. And Dupree spoke about how Natty humiliated her and then yelled that she would break her ankle next week. And after Dupree left, Otis said that Dupree is a bad girl. And Kreischer said it was, who cares? I'm sorry. Otis is used and Otis has not changed the way that WWE uses him since Vince McMahon left. And I was hoping after Vince left, maybe they do something to Otis, and they kind of did. There was a little bit of promise there with the Chad Gable abuse. Remember the emotional and physical abuse that he and Maxine Dupree and Akira Tozawa were facing on a weekly basis, and Otis stood up to him. And what was the payoff? Oh, Otis shoved him. Wow. That'll show him that's the way to stand up and be a man. Horrible. But Maxine Dupree, I got to say, in this promo, it wasn't her best. Maxine is on the downslide now, and we'll see how low that slide goes. All right. And here's the analysis, too. This kind of reiterates the point even further. Angry Dupree is so forced, and this segment was lousy, but I did get a kick out of a free Burt. I didn't. Okay, the second match. Yes, only the second match of the night. A lot of filler and entertainment-y stuff backstage on Monday night. Bronson Reed versus Penta. This match went... What is the timestamp there, guys? I don't know the timestamp. But Penta defeats Bronson Reed via countout because LA Knight shows up and he puts Reed down with a BFT on a steel chair. And Cole said he thought Knight left the building. And then LA Knight took off. So a little bit of measure of revenge from LA Knight on Reed makes total sense. And that's who he should target based on how he left. So Penta gets the victory because of a countout. So nice, easy to understand build towards Reed versus LA Knight. All right. So let's see. We had a AAA mega champion, Dominic Mysterio, come out. And a Dirty Dom chant started. And Dom told the fans that the only reason he came back and was willing to show up at a place like Philly was to celebrate and introduce Liv Morgan as the 2026 Women's Royal Rumble winner. And Morgan comes out in a Hot Girls Love Dom t-shirt. And she jumped into Dom's arms and she thanked Daddy Dom for the introduction and said they were so lucky to have him back. And Morgan told the fans they were in the presence of the greatest Royal Rumble winner of all time. And so the fans want to know which champion she'll choose, but they'll have to wait a little longer. She said she was going to SmackDown to assess all of her options. And that was that. Okay, then Raquel Rodriguez did come out. She had jeans and a big sexy t-shirt. And she said that it had been an amazing weekend for Judgment Day, but they'd been so... I don't know what she means by Judgment Day. Is she talking about like the Terminator 2 movie? But they'd been so busy celebrating Morgan's win that there was something she had yet to address, and that's why Morgan eliminated her from the Rumble match. Morgan said she knows that Rodriguez is not a selfish person, and Morgan said she has a title match, and Rodriguez has one of her own tonight. And she said it's true, but then told Morgan to stay in the back. So we get a street fight. And yes, some tension going now between Morgan and Rodriguez, which may lead to an eventual Morgan versus Rodriguez match at WrestleMania. And the eventual, finally, the total dissolution of the group that shall not be named. It doesn't even deserve to be named. That's how much disrespect that I have for that group. Just the group concept, not the people in it. Because again, think about it. Finn's already off doing his own thing, finally targeting the world title now. You have JD McDonough, who, okay, he doesn't really have a path right now. You have Roxanne Perez, who's fitting nicely into the women's division all on her own. Raquel Rodriguez has found her footing. Dom and Liv have their own thing going on. This group has no reason to exist anymore. No, I mean, it's only a group by name in concept, but it's not an actual group anymore. It was at one point. A very respectable group, a group that was the focal point of Raw. No longer. And it hasn't been for a very long time. So, Stephanie Vaquer versus Raquel Rodriguez in a street fight. Not just a regular one, though. It's a Philadelphia street fight. Not to be confused with just a regular street fight. The difference in the rules, I believe, what is it? Absolutely nothing. Just, again, marketing. I mean, you could say the same thing for a no DQ match, a false count anywhere match. What is the difference? It's all in just marketing the match. But there's 100 different ways that essentially a no DQ match has been advertised over the years. Whatever. It's like the Miracle on 34th Street fight. Same thing. You just brand it with whatever time of the year it is, or whatever season it is, or whatever city you're in. You can label it whatever. Makes it feel more personalized, I guess. I'm not sure. So we had this match go 21 minutes and 55 seconds. Wow. I didn't know it was that long. I was watching it, but I skipped through, I got to be honest, I skipped through a little bit of like the downtime, and I skipped through maybe about 5 minutes of it in total. I didn't know it was 21 minutes. Impressive. That's not a complaint, by the way. Probably the longest match Raquel Rodriguez has ever had on Raw. Maybe Stephanie as well. But the match, I think, was really good. I had no issue with it. Yeah, the finish was a little bit sloppy, but there was tension. They had the setup of the table in the ring. You didn't know who was going to go through it. They kept teasing it, and it took a while on the top rope. And yeah, the payoff was a little bit of anticlimactic because Raquel didn't break the table. She kind of slid off of it. So it was like a partial break that didn't look very visually satisfying. And I agree. It's like, oh, really? They did all that build and she just slides off a cracked table. But whatever, it happens, right? Those are uncontrollables in the match that, you don't anticipate. But we get a nice victory here for Stephanie Vaquer. And the finish, it was, of course, Roxanne showing up and went after Vaquer, who knocked her down through a table on the floor. Raquel joined Vaquer on the ropes where they fought, and then she went for a power bomb. And of course, as I said, she went off the table instead of through it after a Hurricane Rana. And Vaquer hit a corkscrew after that from the top rope that got the 3 count. After the match, Liv Morgan comes in and puts Vaquer down with a very poor looking Oblivion. I mean, that was a bad looking Oblivion. Sorry, Liv. Love you. That didn't look good. But I get it. And Oblivion, as you know, is one of the more devastating finishes in all of WWE. It's almost never kicked out of. Maybe once. So, all right, good finish here. Stephanie wins. And you know what? Yes, Stephanie gets some new music. I don't mind the music. I know there's a lot of people up in arms about it. Didn't need to change it. I like it. It gives her a fresh coat of paint. Does it help with her connection with the audience? We'll see. We'll see. Sometimes the music can really help. And with Stephanie needing to work on her connection from a verbal perspective with her audience, and she does need help on that front. This does, again, kind of rebrand her a bit, give her a little bit more, it differentiates her a little bit more. I actually didn't love her original music anyway. That's me personally. So we'll see. Again, Rodriguez too. Raquel Rodriguez. I continue to sing her praises every week because I remember for months and months and months before she returned, she was very boring as a babyface. Before she joined the Judgment Day, I mean, she was just as vanilla as it gets, despite her size. Remember, she'd come out and she'd just like flex her muscles, like just pose so you could see her, trapezius muscles or whatever, her shoulder blade muscles. And essentially like, oh, wow, don't I have a really muscular back for a woman? That was essentially all she'd say when she'd come out. And her matches were okay, but not a lot of personality at all. She's trying different things that just wasn't catching. Seemingly, she might finally be understanding who and what her character is. So I'm happy for Raquel. She might have found a big, sexy marketing avenue here. I hope. So good for Raquel. Good for Stephanie. This is all around a great finish, and it does also help Liv because it brings her right into the conversation of who she could be facing at WrestleMania. And again, I know that it could be Raquel versus Liv, but Raquel did not win here, so it likely is Stephanie Vaquer versus Liv, likely. But Raquel versus Liv, I think, is even more intriguing because of the history they had in the group that shall not be named. Okay. So then we get Roman Reigns. He comes out and he said he's had highs and lows in Philly. He said he won his first world title there on his daughter's birthday and lost the title there as well. He also recalled winning a Royal Rumble match in Philly When some fans cheered, Reigns laughed, and it said it didn't sound like that. He said he won a second Rumble, and the next town was Philly. Reigns said he had a decision to make. He asked the fans whether he should go after the title that he made, and that's when a CM Punk chant broke out. He said, "So you don't want me to go after Drew McIntyre?" Reigns asked if the fans prefer he challenge Punk, and the fans cheered. That's when CM Punk comes out. So it's funny that he acknowledges his history in Philly, which has been a bit all over the place. And most famously to me, Royal Rumble 2015. That just was, I talk about it more than anybody probably talks about that Rumble, because it was it's a massive backlash of the fans. It's almost like I could duplicate myself, which is a scary thought, and take, 15,000 versions of me and throw them in the crowd that night. And it was just, it was beautiful. So that's not a narcissistic statement, is right. I mean, somehow relating the reaction in Philly from 15,000 fans to me. All right. Well, anyway, so Punk comes out and he recalled Finn Balor saying he doesn't think he's a bad guy. Punk said Balor will find out that he can be the baddest guy when he's provoked. Reigns took issue with Punk for interrupting his segment and then talking to Balor. Punk said they weren't on SmackDown. He said it's Raw on Netflix and he calls the shots. Punk polled the crowd on whether Reigns should challenge him or McIntyre, and Punk assumed that Reigns would take the easy way out by selecting McIntyre, which, by the way, I think he's got a 4-0 record against McIntyre. Reigns said he doesn't like McIntyre, but Punk was talking crazy for saying McIntyre's the easy way. This is when Reigns said, "Hey, Phil, I don't know if you realize this, but Drew is like 4 times bigger than you. And I'm pretty sure the last time you guys fought, he had you crying over a little plastic bracelet." That was a good line. Punk told Reigns to be careful. He said that when he was done with McIntyre, they ran out of staples trying to put him back together. And Punk said he knew Reigns beat McIntyre, but he beat him in Hell in a Cell. And Reigns said he's beaten McIntyre for 3 years straight. And Punk asked how many cousins it took Reigns to do it. Reigns told Punk to watch how he talks about his family, and Reigns said he and his family are the only reason the company is where it is, and that Punk had a show and place to come back to. Punk asked the fans if they really believe that. He said Reigns was sort of right in that he manipulated his cousins into and others into thinking he was a great messiah who carried the company on his back when all he really did was hold it hostage. Punk said he heard Reigns say on ESPN that his quarterly vacations are him graciously stepping in and out of the spotlight, and that he had the audacity to say that nobody filled his shoes, and Punk said nobody was trying to follow in Roman's footsteps. Punk said he was once champion for 434 days with Paul Heyman by his side, and he asked if that sounded familiar. Punk said Reigns followed in his footsteps, and said that just because Reigns did it longer doesn't mean he did it better. That's kind of the money line of the night. So it goes on here. I'm not going to go line for line. You can rewatch it yourself. But Reigns did say that Punk took a 10-year vacation and he was trying to get in as much as possible. And Punk went on. Reigns said he made a promise to Heyman and kept it, but he'll never forget 10 years ago when Punk went on his friend's podcast and made his life harder than it ever should have been. All right. So this part I must have totally missed. I must have missed this on the show, because I promise you, when I was saying earlier that Reigns should bring up the fact that he went on Colt Cabana's podcast, I didn't know that he said it on Raw. I really didn't. This line somehow was totally missed. I must have been in the bathroom or whatever. I'm not sure. I totally missed this. I wasn't being facetious earlier. So, okay, he brought it up already. I missed it. I'm going to have to back and rewatch that particular segment. But I think he could have waited on that material. You don't have to unload everything in one night here, but still good. I'll have to go back and see how it was delivered and came off. Reigns said he let Punk come back, and then Punk stole his wise man and said he almost brainwashed his cousins just like he almost brainwashed him. Reigns said he could pick Punk because he's the biggest star or he's on Netflix and he's on the best show. He said, I'm picking you because I hate you. I've always hated you. WrestleMania is going to be the best day of my life because in the main event, you will acknowledge me. That was it. And this is the analysis from Pro Wrestling Net. It says, well, I'm sold on the WrestleMania 42 main event. They covered a lot of ground and did a tremendous job of making the match feel personal. I don't think it was intentional, but McIntyre took some strays. I'd be worried if it wasn't such a strong promo. I'm sure it made the folks at Netflix happy, but it didn't help SmackDown to have the guy who was the face of the brand for so long refer to Raw as the top show. Overall, it was a good Rumble. Yeah, okay, so blah, blah, blah. True. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're having Roman, who essentially was a SmackDown constant for how many years when he was champion, talk about how the Raw is the top show. Not what you want to hear, but whatever. It'll blow over very quickly. So very, very strong promo. I would concur with this. It did help sell the WrestleMania 42 main event very well. Very well. Now, is it going to feel this hot 11 weeks from now? Maybe. We've seen things start off hot and then fall off a cliff. We've seen things start out hot, get cold, and then get hot again. That's how I think this will probably go. Because you can't keep things hot for 11 weeks. You just can't. So you're going to have, ride this wave. I don't expect Roman to actually be at Raw next week. I'd be shocked if he is. I think he's going to be there every other week until WrestleMania. Or he may take 2 weeks off and come back for 2 or 3 weeks and then take, something like that. But I would approximate about 50% of the Raws from now till WrestleMania 42, Roman will be at. And I just don't think it'll be this hot moving forward. There's going to be likely a flub promo here or there, and that's normal. You can't have 11 hot weeks of content building to this match. It's just not possible. So, but awesome job getting started off on the right foot. Absolutely. Great stuff here. So, really good Raw. I mean, I would say it was a good Raw. Not a ton of wrestling matches, but that's kind of Raw's identity at this point. We don't have a whole lot of wrestling. It's a lot of backstage. It's a lot of promos and that kind of thing. Now, before I go here, I know there's a couple things I said I was going to do. Let's see here. I do want to, let's see if there's a Rumble. This is a short email, so I'll get to this email. And it says from Armando. It says, I've been a long-time listener of the podcast and have really enjoyed it the past few years. It's my first time writing in, and I was hoping to get your take on a couple things. After watching the Rumble in Riyadh, I couldn't help but notice how many empty seats were visible from various camera angles throughout the night. I also noticed a lot of empty seats during Friday Night SmackDown. Why spend all that money to host the Rumble, but leave so many seats empty for a major PLE? Well, from what I understand, they weren't empty. The LED lights created the illusion of it being empty when they weren't. And I was watching a lot of some of the top YouTubers who were streaming on their sites and on TikTok and wherever comment about how people were saying it looked empty, and the people in attendance were saying, no, it's not. It just looks like it is. And the way that the glare of the lights and the LED on the seats hit the camera lens, it looked like the seat was empty, but there was actually people there. So I think that had a lot to do with it. And in Riyadh, they're a little more strict than in the United States or elsewhere. They want you to be in your seat, sitting in your seat most of the time, as much as you can, rather than being up. So what you saw were likely the times when people were sitting, not able to stand and cheer and do whatever. I mean, for example, go and watch when Brie Bella came out. I believe a lot of people stood up for that. You'll go and see, oh, wow, those seats did look empty. And now I see it. It looks, I see the people. I think a lot of that was kind of an optical illusion. Second, I also find the amount of advertising during WWE programming to be overwhelming. At times, it feels like it's being forced fed to the audience, to the point where the only things not covered in ads are the referees, the walkway, and the wrestlers themselves. Guarantee within 2 years, you'll see advertising on the ref and the wrestlers. Love to hear your thoughts on both. Thanks to the great content. Keep up the great work. Well, thanks, Armando. I appreciate that. I mean, I've been saying that for a long time too. I think you're going to have advertisements everywhere. We already have disgraced the sacred mat of the wrestling ring. And I don't say that in a mocking way. I mean that. If you're a wrestling fan and you've been a fan for some time, if you don't respect the actual wrestling ring itself, then you're not a fan. Because people have died in that ring. People have broken bones in that ring, teeth, been paralyzed, and now they just cover it in ads. Like, well, hey, if it squeezes out a few more bucks, let's let Slim Jim slap their logo in the middle of the goddamn ring. I think it's just so disrespectful. But TKO doesn't give a damn. They are the single most money-hungry company that I've seen. Transparently, I should say, money-hungry company with no shame that I've ever seen. No shame. So, they are not going to stop. And I wouldn't be surprised, like I said, within a couple of years, you're going to see logos on the referees' backs. You're going to see logos on the wrestlers' attire. That's coming. That's coming. There's not going to be anything you can look at all when you're watching Raw or SmackDown, or especially a PLE, that doesn't have something to do with their sponsors. And then a lot of people, you get used to it. No, I don't want to get used to it. I don't want to. And I don't. And I have people say, well, UFC did it. Look, well, that's UFC. You know what made WWE unique in part was the fact that their canvas was respected, that it was about the wrestlers. It wasn't about WWE trying to make more money. That they actually allowed you to watch wrestling without having to see a sponsor in your face for 3 hours every single night that you watch wrestling. I mean, you literally can't look anywhere. It's on the LED boards. It's obviously throughout the show. You have commercial breaks. They have the wrestler like red ads where Otis is, I don't know, shoving down a Domino's pizza, like whatever. It feels so money hungry now. But hey, that's the world we live in. All right, guys. So continue to send your Royal Rumble thoughts. Mailbag at WWEpodcast.com. That's mailbag at WWEpodcast.com. Now, that's the end of the wrestling show. I'm going to talk something a little bit related to wrestling, only because it's CM Punk. But this is where those of you who are like, hey, I only want to hear you talk about wrestling. Well, this is where you kind of tune out. All right. And I'll see you in a couple of days. All right. Talk to you in a couple of days. But for those of you who are sticking around, there was a clip going around of April AJ Lee and Phil Brooks, CM Punk, who went on a podcast or a YouTube show called The Hot Ones. And he was, I'll let him do the talking here. And then we'll come back here. So let me just set this up. All right, here we go.
Is on your Mount Rushmore of women superstars, and I say hak to Mount Rushmore before a bunch of random white people decided to carve faces in it. It was a American Indian monument called Six Grandfathers. Who's on your six?
All right, so instead of saying Mount Rushmore, he refers to the faces of Mount Rushmore. And again, if you're not in the United States, you obviously don't give a damn. Mount Rushmore is specific to the United States and historic to the United States. So if you're in the UK or wherever, it just means nothing to you. Even though you might use the phrase "who's on your Mount Rushmore," it has a different meaning to you because it's just it just means who are your top 4 favorite wrestlers. But it means a little more if you're in the United States because it actually is a thing here. It resides here. So if you're in Canada, if you are in the UK, Australia, and Africa, wherever, Mount Rushmore to you, while I talk about this, is going to be like, well, was he? Well, who cares? Well, that's because I'm in America, right? That's why. So let me address the Indian part first, which, of course, I'm sure he'd acknowledge as like stolen land or something. No, it wasn't stolen. It was conquered. You know how every other piece of land and country exists on this earth right now because of conquering? Yeah, that. So you can't also steal land. And if you would also acknowledge that this land is stolen, well, then you, by your own moral code, are on stolen land and should therefore leave. But you can't steal land. You conquer it. That's how it's gone. That's how it's gone since the humans have inhabited this earth. All right. So I don't want to hear about this. Let's show respect to the indigenous. Why? We conquered this land and we turned it into the greatest country in the world. No disrespect to, I'm sure when I say that, it's all, you believe your country's the best. Well, look, if you're in the UK, you probably believe that your country is the best. If you're in, France, or you're in Germany, or you're in Australia, or you're wherever, I'm sure you believe the same thing. And that's great. You should, right? You should believe that where you are is the best, I would hope. But to say that they were just a bunch of random white dudes who carved their faces, really? Really? Four random, let me rattle off these random dudes that were just imprinted on the side of a mountain. Let me just give you some of these names because they're about as random as it gets. So George Washington, kind of a weird name, right? Some guy that apparently he led an army to victory in the Revolutionary War. He's the first U.S. president. Thomas Jefferson, who was one of the main authors of the Declaration of Independence. Theodore Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln, those guys. Man, I wish I could just ring a bell. I'm sure none of these names are just. Again, when you think of random, that's like putting words together. It's like word salad for names, and. It took something like 14 years and 400 people to carve the names in their the side of the mountain. But hey, yeah, just a bunch of random white guys who contributed nothing to society. And the fact that he has to point out they're white tells you everything you need to know about where he stands on every issue ever. Which is why I disagree with him about basically everything. Phil Brooks, the man, is to me, a very self-righteous, narcissistic, godless man. That's what he is. I mean, I don't think he's. But if you talk to him, I'm sure he seems nice. But his worldview and actual beliefs are in complete opposition of mine. But CM Punk, the performer, hey, can't downplay his talent. So I don't want to spend too much more time on these random white guys that contributed nothing to society other than the very foundation of America. Other than that, sure, just a bunch of lowlifes. All right, well, that'll do it here. I told you guys it was kind of wrestling, but not really. So I'll leave it there, and I will say goodbye, and I will talk to you guys maybe in a few days. For those on the podcast side of things on Patreon, if you're in the mid or higher tiers, getting a video update this week with the latest news or kind of whatever the hell's on my mind for several minutes. We'll see. Thanks, everybody. And go to Patreon if you want to go ad-free, patreon.com/WWE podcast. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.